entertainment, current events, and Hollywood. Don't miss Creator to Creators, hosted by the filmmaker Mio Shabin, known for the Shudder hit documentary Horror Noir and the acclaimed film Anatomy of an Anti-Hero, Redemption. This show features interviews with filmmakers and creatives from around the globe. Join the fun with guest celebrities and gain valuable insights. Subscribe now and follow Creator to Creator.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creators to Creators today. Today we have a special guest.
Hi, I'm Marcin Mazurek and I'm a Polish film composer. I'm currently based in London.
Love it. I love it. So, as you know, I love going back to the beginning. I always say the beginning charts our trajectory in life, our little habits we pick up along the way, follow us into our adulthood. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. When did you know you were like, okay, music was the thing, or when did composing come into play?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting one because I strongly believe it was a couple of elements that sort of came together and right timings of things that just sort of worked out for me really nicely. The first thing was that my parents took me to piano classes when I was really young, when I was around 3 years old. In our city, there was this program from Yamaha for kids. It was, just experimenting with the instrument and experimenting with music. Getting comfortable with piano. So I started attending those. Then that sort of naturally progressed into a music school and more formal education in piano, which I did, like a primary music school when I was 7 until 13. There were some other classes there as well that were music theory and rhythm and all the other different things. And that was really nice, but I think at some point I realized that there are just so many people that are way better at this, that commit more time to practicing. I wasn't the best at it myself, I think. I remember my parents were pushing me more and more the older I got, and the less I sort of engaged with it in some way. So I sort of lost that spark, I think, for piano that I initially had as a really young kid. But that coincided with two things. So firstly, pretty much straight after I finished the primary music school, I joined a band at our school. It was a really great experience because there were people singing, playing like violin, cello, percussion, guitars. There was quite a lot of people which were active musically, and that space very quickly transitioned into an environment in which I could compose my own pieces and sort of work with those people. Then I started experimenting with orchestral composition. I wanted to express myself. I didn't want to repeat pieces that already existed, but I wanted to create something new, and that felt like a natural avenue. So I started doing more like orchestral and, sample programming approach, exploring different software that allows me to do it. And then, not far from where I grew up, so I grew up in like the small town outside of Kraków, and in Kraków there was this very big film music festival that just started. I think they had their first edition in 2010, and I remember attending it from very, very early days. That all pretty much naturally came up after I graduated from the music school, and I was just so blown away by film. By hearing some, scores performed live. It was such a unique experience because we had like the best composers at the time come into my town, and this all felt so accessible in a way. There were a lot of master classes that they were doing that were super inspiring, and I remember there was the biggest names: Hans Zimmer, Howard Shore, Alexander Desplat, Brian Tyler, doing those master classes, and not many people knew about them. So there was sometimes one of those composers and maybe 20 people in the room, and I think 15 at the time, and I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. I love what those people are doing. It sounds great in those, there was massive venues that they played in, like arenas. It was just so cool, and I was like, wow, this is really fun what those people are doing.
I love that. And
So that was the first thing, and that inspired me to explore it even more myself, got closer to the festival, like started attending it literally every year, all the concerts, pretty much all the master classes. There was, some competition for composers, which I applied to, and through that I sort of, met quite a few people who were a couple of steps ahead of me, which was really nice because those were not the people who are, fully known internationally, but there were other composers, 5, 10 years older than me, and I saw what sort of next steps they took, which was obviously the education side of things. They were doing different universities, and yeah, I mean those were the sort of inspiring points, and obviously all the films that I saw there. Then there was also another thing. There was Poland and Ukraine hosted Euros in 2012, the football tournament, and when the players were entering the pitch, there was music from Two Steps from Hell, like this big epic trailer sound, and I was like so blown away by that. So yeah, again, quite a few elements that came together at the right time, that inspired me to pursue this as much as I can.
That's amazing. And you've created such a a resume of work. How does being a Polish composer living in London shape your musical voice, uh, and worldwide as an artist?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think um, I do really enjoy listening and appreciating music from very different cultures around the world. So um, through that, I sort of understood some of the beauty that we have in Polish musical tradition, especially maybe even from the region that I'm from. There are certain things that people would play naturally in sort of the folk music thing that are really cool to the region. I don't think I'm necessarily my work is influenced by it a lot. But there are other musical traditions that really inspire me, and I connected, like at university we had this subject of like intercultural music, where we learned about music from different cultures around the world. There was some culture from Africa that we specifically looked at, some were from Asia, and different, very very different traditions, which are so unique. Like I did not understand what was going on musically in some of those pieces. I was so blown away by all of them that we learned about. But one that I particularly connected with was Bulgarian music, and I remember I had a period where I was super influenced by that. I was like, this is so cool, because I listened to it and I didn't understand what's going on. They have a very complicated musical rhythms and metrums that is just like difficult to count and follow, and all of them very naturally connect with that. So I think that made me understand that there are so many different cultures musically in the world, that's super beautiful. And I mean, I suppose maybe through that I sort of, that inspired me to look at how Polish music was shaped. Obviously we have a lot of great composers,
Yeah.
so I really appreciate all of their work, but I wouldn't necessarily say that being Polish really influenced my music now in a way that I'm consciously aware about it.
Yeah. No,
Does that make
I
sense?
yeah, absolutely makes sense. Absolutely. And that's really cool. Yeah, and also I'm curious, at what point did you realize that film scoring was more than a career choice? That it was your language? Because I feel like people that are really good at what they do just somehow tap into some type of like another level of other source that kind of opens up this, I don't know, this next level of I don't know, talent or whatever. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose love for doing it. I definitely feel I very much have that spark that sort of died down for playing piano. That spark has come up in film music composition, and it comes in different ways. I think in different aspects of it. Definitely, I think it's that combination of different sources of inspiration and different ways that I got into it. I think that's all sort of coming together. It's not just one single source of inspiration, which could be, I don't know, like, very traditional musical education that could lead to this point. I think there's different points of inspiration that started along the way that, as I mentioned, like, for example, the Two Steps from Hell music, the Film Music Festival. Then more recently, I'm very drawn to documentaries or films that are based on real stories, even if those stories aren't mine stories. I absolutely love learning about, different people around the world, and uh, different stories that I can support musically. And I think that's something that became that inspiration and helps fulfill or revigorate that spark every day in me to do what I do. Yeah, so the different elements that kind of come at the different stages, and that keep inspiring me in many different ways. Then obviously I love just writing music in general. I think because you can express yourself creatively, and yeah, just experimentation. That's another thing that I really love. So experimenting, finding different sounds, being creative, like finding solutions to problems or to challenges that you need to overcome in some projects, how to approach it in a creative, unique way, or how to understand the director's vision. uh, the human element. I love people. That's another thing that really pushed me into film scoring. That there's different projects, and every day you connect with a different person. People are very different, and they're all very unique in different ways. So speaking with each of them, they have different stories that they're telling, and they have different personalities. So yeah, that's another thing that it ignites spark in me for writing film music. So yeah, all the elements coming sort of together. I think that's the thing that has worked for me so far.
I love that. Getting into rock, paper, scissors, the project, when you first encountered rock, paper, scissors, what was your emotional reaction before thinking about music at all?
Yeah, it was. I was blown away by the story. I mean, the way that Franz, the director, narrated it to me for the first time. He, told me that he has this project and we need to talk about it. He came to my studio, and without giving me any more information about it, just narrate the story as we learn it as the audience members. So step by step, uncovering the bigger world surrounding the character. We don't know where we are, but there's something happening between him and like his father and other people. Then we sort of discover where we are set, that we are in the present day, on the front line in Ukraine. And with each discovery, it was like this reveal that I was like, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. And then he tells me the story of what actually happened, and because it's based on a real story, I had chills. I was like, wow, this is an incredible story, and I just like really wanted to be a part of it. And yeah, I think there are many emotions that are in there. It's a very emotional story, of course, a story of sacrifice, a story of, and because it's so urgent, it's something that's, well, that we made the film 2.5 years ago. Like that's when the film process started, and it's sort of, a year ago, I think, roughly, we had our first sort of festivals, and then this year
Amazing.
has been a big run for the film. um, and the conflict is still happening in Ukraine nowadays. So yeah, the fact of it being real, and through cinema and through storytelling, to be able to share about it with people, sort of, I like to think we're all aware, but show this, human side, show the slightly different side. And yeah, I remember I was like, oh wow, this is really important, and this is really heavy. And yeah, I was moved. I was really moved for sure. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of inspiration, and then finding that language, of course, is a separate process, because obviously the story is very clear, but
Yeah.
then the way you show it, the way you approach it, um, yeah, it's always like an experimental process. What actually will be the right way to tell it? At least musically, music is very abstract, right? So
Yes.
uh,
And I have a question really quick about that, just like about the responsibility of it all, right? There's such a weight because it's such a true story. And I'm curious of like, did that feel like a lot, when scoring stories rooted in real human suffering, right? Like, but I'm sure also rewarding once you get to the other side of that. And also, like you said, to bring awareness is what you do it for. But I'm sure that responsibility was a lot. I can only imagine.
yeah, 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 absolutely. No, for sure. I mean, it was again, because it was earlier on in the war, I suppose, that I first heard about this project and started getting involved, we knew less about it, I guess. And yeah, responsibility was of course huge. And me coming from Poland, I feel like this hits really close to home in a way as well. And the fight that Ukrainians are involved in, unfortunately, I felt like Poland has gone through a similar
Yeah.
sort of history there as well. So yeah, it was a big responsibility. And yeah, I think always when in films there are real stories, there's huge responsibility. And yeah, it's a huge privilege to be
Yeah.
part of those projects and be able to share and support sharing stories of real people. And yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I have a fun question, and this is a completely question, but I love asking it, and I promise you there's no wrong answer. But the three
Okay.
levels of influence: money, power, and respect. And if you could choose only one of those things, which one would you choose and why?
Okay, right. That's a good question. I mean, I suppose all of them are sort of interconnected in some way. I really like doing what I'm doing because of like this human aspect, and like sort of building connections. And I like to prioritize just this yeah, this great human interaction, fun of the process, being really fair with people, and doing the job properly, like engaging in the projects, and doing things right. I just strongly believe in that. So I think taking from that, the respect is the most valuable of those things, I suppose. And just building a brand, building a name on real solid sort of building blocks, and just being reliable. I really like try to do all I can to be that person that is reliable, that people can count on, and to do my job properly, and put 110% into every project that I get the privilege to be a part of. And I suppose with the other two, like once you sort of build that respect, the other two to some extent come in naturally. Yeah, I think respect is the and solidity of one's brand, like being a solid person. I think it's the thing in life and thing in film industry that I value the most in people, and I would like to be seen through that lens of just being this legit person. I
Absolutely.
think,
I love that.
yeah.
I love that. And you're doing that. And you're doing that. Absolutely doing that. I feel like it's very important that I love what you said. It's also a part of not just what we do in our career, but also in life, and it's important to have that because I feel like, we live in such a world, and especially this industry that we're in, it's so like up and down. There's ebbs and flows. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes people want a microwave success, so they're willing to, kind of let go of their values or devalue themselves or their own respect. And I feel like people that do respect themselves and respect others, it might take a longer process, but I feel like you can sleep at night. You have more peace. So yeah,
Yeah,
great answer.
absolutely. I mean, I like to think that's how it should be. And I yeah, value that part of it very much.
I love that. I love that. So I was curious, when it comes to the process of creating, music, how do you balance tension and restraint when the subject matter is already so heavy?
Okay, interesting. I mean, yeah, I suppose with all films, it's all about experimentation, really. And there is never an answer before you start scoring a film, to how to approach it. You just discover the process. And the most important thing in film scoring is to be able to have the process handled in the right way. So a lot of good communication is so crucial, like communication with director, with editor. Honesty is so important. Like if something doesn't work, like it's part of the process, tell me, like, absolutely, this doesn't work, no problem, I'll write something new. So it's important to have that honesty back and forth. And yeah, just communicate what everyone feels honestly. If we feel that we should try something completely different, even though the thing that we currently have works. I think that that always needs to be communicated and yeah, tried really. So yeah, it's about that good process and seeing what sort of the footage asks for, what the edit asks for, and how the music sort of plays in there. I love starting working on films as early as possible, sometimes before anything is even shot, just based on the script, and having those conversations early because music is so abstract, like and everyone grew up listening to something different. So for me, what I would say is tense or sad could have a slightly different meaning for someone else. So it's sort of understanding that, trying a couple of things, and then in an ideal world, having a little bit of music before something is shot, then adjusting that music to what has been shot,
Ah, I
then
see.
re-editing the footage a little bit, then adjusting the music, and yeah, I think taking an example with rock paper scissors, uh, we started just based on the script before anything was shot, and our cast was Ukrainian people who were living in this very difficult situation every day. So obviously they knew much better how it feels, but sort of in terms of stylizing and showing the language that we would try to use, I think musically at least to them was an interesting thing. So the actors came from Ukraine to shoot, and they were listening already to, we had quite a lot of material that we developed in sketches, and yeah, actors were listening to it and understanding in which direction we want to push their performances. Of course they were again submerged in that reality, so they best knew how to describe it way better than any of us could. But stylistically sort of starting the conversation there, and then the footage came, and then we adjusted it, took it to a slightly different direction, then the editor adjusted some scenes a little bit to the music, the music readjusted to that, and yeah, it was I suppose all about discovery. And I think in every film it's all about that discovery really, so you never know the answers until you have the final project, and then
Right, right. You're like, oh, that's what it is, right? You see it at the end when it's all like put together. And
yeah.
just to kind of I got to give you your flowers, recognition and impact. I mean, come on, this film, won a BAFTA and received major award recognition, right?
Yeah.
And including, I mean, just so many things. How did the validation, I don't know, affect you?
Yeah, I mean, we never expected any of this from the very beginning. I think with this stuff, it's always a little bit of a lottery. You never know, like if the film is going to go far or not. I think huge credit to our producer Heider, who's here, and director Franz Boom for pushing the project. I think that's what I think made the difference. That they were really actively, it wasn't like the project was finished and okay, well maybe someone will pick it up. I know that they very actively, campaigned with the project, and they saw it as much more than just a film. It was really this very urgent story that needed to be shared to the wider world, and yeah, I mean it's thanks to them, I think, that we had all of this success, I suppose, in the past year. It was really nice. It's always great to get recognition, and yeah, obviously that sort of gave us really amazing experience. I mean, I think especially at the BAFTAs that was really cool, because there was like events that gave you access to the other people that were nominated and had a win. So there were some amazing conversations I managed to have with some of the people I look up to, and yeah, it was just a unique experience, and we never thought it would go this far with this film, and I suppose I was trying my best to enjoy every moment of that, and yeah, it was really nice, and it was obviously great to see the recognition for this true story. It's so widely received.
I love that. I love that you got that, and it just opened up so many doors. And I'm curious of that when someone gets to that level, or maybe that's me when I think, like, when I look at some like Academy Award artist or an actor get an award or get to that the pinnacle, I guess, of recognition. Is it now do you feel like, okay, I have to do really well now? Is there pressure, do you feel, to do well in the next project?
I mean, I think how I like to see it is as I mentioned before, I like to sort of take it day by day, project by project, and yeah, connecting with people, just doing the job really well, like doing 110% for every project. I think another thing that I think sometimes how it works in the industry is that every project is like a really beautiful thing that you can develop. You not only connect more with the director, you together you create this thing that's hopefully nice, and is gonna get at least some people to see it. But it's also with the awards and stuff like that, it's always really a lottery, so you never know how far the next project is going to go, I think. And yeah, it's like you do the job for creating this final result and connecting with the director, and the whole process is nice, and of course it's work as well. But yeah, it's like a ticket for the lottery, and you never know how far it's gonna go. And on that note, I think there has been some projects that I'm like super proud of that I've done, and I think they were really nice, but they just didn't get picked up, or there was not enough push, I suppose, on the other side, and that's what sort of did the difference with the awards. And but they were still great projects. So I guess, yeah, again, it's kind of like to me at least, it feels like it's a lottery sometimes with those awards, and doesn't change anything. It's nice to add to a CV and have that extra recognition from this or from that, but yeah, the real work, I suppose, is building your portfolio and doing another project, and hopefully another project that really matters. But there are also projects that are really fun to do, and sometimes that's also a nice thing. In post-production, as crew, we get to do much more projects sometimes than directors, and we have like this something is in a comedy or like a western, and then a jazz, and at the same time you're doing like a very, very serious film. So sometimes also having those projects that are just fun is also fun. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's so fun. I love sitting in and listening to, like, when I work with composers, I love giving them the idea and they just nail it. And you're just like, wow, like that's crazy that you can just bring that to life. It's so rewarding. For young artists and composers out there listening to you right now, what do you want them to understand about patience, craft, and finding their voice when it comes to this industry?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can say it as in terms of like what I didn't know a couple of years ago, and what I learned now, and what I would love to tell myself back a couple of years ago. Obviously, I suppose I went in one path, and there's probably a lot of things that I never explored, so I wouldn't know much about that. But I think what I learn more and more every day, that it's really about the collaboration. The most important thing is just to have a good connection, open communication with directors. I remember very ignorantly, sort of 5-6 years ago, at some point, in my first films, probably I wanted it to have like, yeah, the music has to be really nice. It's like, I'm doing music, I'm gonna do this nice music, and sometimes maybe it was a little bit like at the expense of the film in some way. Some of the choices I made were pushing for the music to be nice, and it wasn't necessarily supporting the film as much. And yeah, that's another thing, to be a filmmaker really that has the skill set of a composer, and to be a team player really. And it's like, right, I can write music for this film, but let's understand what this film really needs. And sometimes there are projects where there is a long process of exploration. I mean, I had one project, or probably more, where there was more spaces initially that we thought are gonna have music, and then in the end it was just like two pieces or something like that, and or like even one piece that we ended up actually having in the film. But and in to some extent maybe I was like, oh, I wish there was more music in this film, because obviously it's nicer, but it isn't really, because it was all about that process of understanding what will really help this piece of art be the best it can be. And if the decision was that the music shouldn't go there, fine. And if the music has to just be in that specific place, and that is the best version of this film, then that's part of the process. And sometimes killing the best ideas that you've had and you thought were working but weren't quite working. It's very difficult sometimes. But I think now I think yeah, with every process I'm understanding that more and more, that that's very much part of the job, and actually trying to understand that and trying to embrace it on every film. It's like, yeah, if this isn't working, completely fine. Like, if there's to be at the end of the process even no music in the film, but we went through that discovery, fine. Like, if that benefits the film, really, then that's nice. So yeah, just sort of flexibility and seeing yourself as a filmmaker with a skill set of music. I think that's something I would tell myself a couple of years ago in terms of the craft, but surely there's like huge amount of things I'm still clueless about, probably. But yeah, that's one thing that I noticed a difference in my approach.
I love that. I love that you're still, even though you've accomplished so much, I love that you're saying that there's so much more to go. Like and there's like you even haven't even like it's so great to hear that. Like, yes, you've done all these things, but you're like, I have way more things I want to do. And I think that's yeah, part of the journey. Like we'll never get to that place of, I guess, satisfaction. I don't think we're
Yeah,
like, oh, I'm
absolutely. I
done.
think it's all about the journey, right? It's all about
Yeah.
the journey, I think. And yeah, I mean, I think everyone goes through a different path, and things that they encounter in their, filmmaker career shape them in a certain way. But another person will never have had those certain issues that I would have learned from, but they would have learned from some other things, and they would be more research in a certain other aspect of the job. So yeah, it's all about really the projects that you get to work on, the people that you connect with, and that shapes you as a person as well, and your musical voice in many different ways. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day. This was so lovely to talk to you. Where can people find you on social media to follow everything you have going on?
Yeah, Instagram mostly. Like I do my best to kind of post on my Instagram once in a while. It's marcin.mazurek, marcin.mazurek. And so yeah, most stuff is on Instagram. I mean, there's my website. Like I try to have some stuff on my website as well. So that's yeah. Like if you just Google like Marcin Mazurek, then you can probably find everything that I have that way.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a pleasure. And please come back again for
Thank
another
you for having me.
conversation.
Thanks for having
Absolutely.
me. Really
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. We're connected and this was so great. Thank you for sharing your journey. And I get, this is a fun part of listening to someone's journey because everyone's journey is different and unique. We can all take some tidbits from people's journeys. So thank you for your time.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate your time as well. Great speaking with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. We'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.